Hello, welcome back. Today I wanted to talk a little bit about diversifying your TBR shelf and your at-home shelf. What is there, a plane going by? Will that even help? Like an air raid. If one more person yells, one more time. Why are they yelling? Where are all these cars coming from? Everything's shut down. Okay, I'm going to start this video off by having a little chat about what we do in our household, how we buy, what we buy, and I'll finish it off with some recommendations from authors that are people of color. When buying books, I try to make a conscious effort to buy and get, ooh, every time. Every time. This video is going to be half an hour long. And it's all trucks. I live in Alberta, so there's a lot of trucks. Okay, so, oh, yeah, it is. I'm saying also too much. I'm going to take a breath. I personally take the stance that Stephen King, Danielle Steele, Nora Roberts do not really need any more clout. So what I try and do as a reader and as book club host and what I do with friends is I try and do my due diligence to diversify my reading shelf, diversify my collection, and also when lending out books, when giving out suggestions, I try my hardest to make sure there is a swath of selections that are not something you're just going to walk in and see. And I want to take part in participating and doing my due diligence with whatever little platform I have and whatever platform I have at work to spur that on and to get people, to motivate people to participate in this. So without further ado, here are some recommendations that I have from authors that you probably know about, may have read their books, and then some that are maybe not so well known. So first, I would be remiss not to talk about Celestine. Little Fires Everywhere, Everything I Never Told You. These have become a staple in the domestic thriller reading community, and for good reason. This lady knows what she's doing. Alfie, he's licking himself. Oh, this is a bad filming day. Alfie, stop. Alf. No. This lady knows what she's doing when she writes about domestic thrillers, when she writes about family trials, and the tension that can naturally arise. She has a way of taking natural family tension and elevating it in such a way that it's a story really unlike any other. If you have not, for some reason, read Celestine, definitely pick her up. Next, woman we all know, Mindy Kaling, but I would be remiss not to put her on this list. She has a way of writing that it's like she's talking to her friend. You feel like her friend and she's telling you a story when she's writing. And Why Not Me? It's a collection of essays. It's really great for a coffee table like book. You put it down, you pick it up, one chapter at a time. They're just a collection of tiny little stories that are sure to have you laughing by the end of it. Next I have The Marrow Thieves by Sherry DeMoulin. Pardon the pronunciation if I get any of this wrong. So The Marrow Thieves has quickly become one of my favorite books of all time. It is a gorgeous story. The indigenous community, which is hunted upon because they alone are the dreamers left in the world. And that's all I'm going to say about it. If you haven't given this a shot, it's gorgeous. It's poignant. It's beautiful. This author knows exactly what she's doing, what she wants to say, the point she wants to get it across, but she does it in a way that it doesn't feel like she's shoving a narrative down your throat. It feels like she's telling a story. You understand what you're supposed to be taking for it, but you genuinely enjoy the story, and that's exactly what she does. She teaches people in a way that it doesn't feel like you're sitting down for a lecture. It feels like she's taking you on a journey, and through that, you're understanding where she's coming from and the point she's trying to make, and it makes you very introspective about what you're doing and maybe how you look at the world. Next we have I Know Why the Caged Bird Sings by Maya Angelou. Maya Angelou is a personal hero of mine. She is one of my favorite authors of all time. I've read all of her works. She is a gorgeous writer. She was a gorgeous speaker. She knew exactly what she was doing and what she wanted to say. And for a woman of color, especially a black woman, and especially a woman of that time, that's not an easy thing to find. She had to claim her voice. She had to steal it back from people who tried to take it from her. And not just I Know Why the Caged Bird Sings. She has a plethora of beautiful works that you can pick through, that you can read at your leisure. And if you haven't read anything by her yet, you are missing out, and I highly suggest you pick something up and order something today. Next we have Mistakes to Run With, which I did feature in my last video about isolation recommendations. So I'm not going to delve too much into what this is about. I'm just going to say this is a memoir about a woman who's from Vancouver, BC, and all of the trials and tribulations she grows up with. She falls in love with a man who becomes her pimp. She gets hooked on drugs and alcohol, and how she climbs out of the hole she didn't just dig for herself, but also people put her in. Next, we have George and Rue by George Eliot Clarke. This is a work of fiction by a Canadian author that takes place in New Brunswick. So this is a very interesting story. I first read it when I was attending the University of Dalhousie. My mother passed it along to me, and it is one of the best reads I've ever had. I actually have 2 copies on my shelf. One I lend out to all of my friends, and one I keep for personal use. I always want to have a copy of this available. This takes place in 1949 when George and Rufus Hamilton bludgeon a police driver to death. 8 months later, they're hanged for their crime, and this is the story surrounding this. I do want to give a warning to be prepared for what you're going into. It deals with obviously the very harsh subject of racism and stereotyping. It does it in such a way that it is very much in your face. Look at your history, Canada. It's very stark, it's very startling, but it is a gorgeous novel, and if you have a chance, please order it. Next, we have the one and only N.K. Jamison. N.K. Jamison is a queen of fantasy, and I found it very interesting because sometimes I struggle to find fantasy that is not only written by women, but written by women of color. She does such a good job of interweaving humanity into her stories and making it strike home in such a way that sometimes you forget that you're reading fantasy. She is so talented. This is her Inheritance trilogy, which I am quickly making my way through. I actually meant to buy her other trilogy, the 5th season, and got a little bit confused about the fronts of them. I work at a bookstore, so I actually just happened to pick up the wrong one, but I am not mad about it. She has quickly become one of my favorite fantasy writers. She has a voice unlike anything I've ever read. That brings me to my next point. One of my favorite things about diversifying your shelf and diversifying your TBR is you get voices that maybe you otherwise wouldn't hear and perspectives you maybe otherwise wouldn't understand or think to pick up. Naturally, depending on your culture, we all come from different backgrounds. We all have different experiences as individuals. But when you come from a particular community, those experiences might be heightened or lessened depending on what community you come from, thus giving us different perspectives. So it's important that we take opportunities to set ourselves in other people's shoes, especially when their shoes maybe aren't put to the forefront for us to slip our feet into all that often. I will have a diversity haul up in the next couple of weeks as I just made a diversity order. That is a book order I placed solely featuring diverse authors. I hope you enjoyed all my recommendations. If you have any, please put them in the comments below. If you'd like to subscribe, I make videos every Wednesday and Saturday. Bye!